Wow, this exhibit at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center is about Kitcheneers, which show that science can be fun.
Hi, I'm Ariel Brown, and today's Teen Scene Show will be hosted at the Maryland's Women's Heritage Center. So don't touch that dial, we'll be right back.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we have liftoff of NASA's Aqua spacecraft designed to study the Earth's water systems. And everything continues to go well.
Plus 30 seconds.
30 seconds into launch at this time.
Roger.
We're here at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, and this is an example of what the upcoming building should look like. Women today have more opportunities for future careers, like Dr. Claire Parkinson.
And she is a project scientist at NASA Goddard. If you could share a little bit about what you're working on.
Well, I have two main categories of work at Goddard, and the first is my own research. And my research I've been doing there since 1978, so a long time. And the research is on examining sea ice in the Arctic and Antarctic using satellite data. The second main task that I have is to be the project scientist of a mission named Aqua that was launched in 2002. I've been project scientist since 1993, so there are 9 years before we even got any data out of it. And it's collecting data about the atmosphere, oceans, land, ice. So lots of different data sets are coming out from that satellite, which has 16 Earth observing instruments.
And to work at NASA?
Actually, I grew up loving math. Math was absolutely my favorite subject all the way through school. But I was in college in the late 1960s, and there were a lot of troublesome things happening. Civil rights were clearly not what they should be. The Vietnam War was going on. And even though I was majoring in math and loved math, I felt like it's too abstract. I need to get something that's more concrete, and that's when I switched from math to science.
There are many opportunities in a science career for women today. Women even have the opportunity to become biological scientists. One of the more important women who helped us with our environment is Rachel Carson. books, and you can find out more about her at the Women's Heritage Center. Or you could read Up Close with Rachel Carson, environmentalist. Today's generations, women have major opportunities to become physicians. A lot of people don't realize that Clara Barton was the founder of the American Red Cross. The Maryland Women's Heritage is proud to present Clara Barton. From her efforts, women today now have the opportunity to become physicians. One of the great public health leaders was Rose Kushner, who helped with the treatment of breast cancer. Today, women can even become pharmacists. Women can also have careers in the field of engineering.
It was designed by Julia Morgan, who was a famous female architect who got her break after the earthquake happened in 1908.
Wow.
And so she rebuilt this famous hotel called the Fairmont in San Francisco, and she did Hearst Castle and this part of the cemetery, buildings in downtown.
Is this, Joe, is this the same cemetery that we're going to go to later?
Mm-hmm. It's attached to the right outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is like the entry. It's like a nice.
And that cemetery was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted, who did Central Park.
Wow.
So the outdoor part is by him.
Wow. That's
it's beautiful.
Today, women can even have careers in the field of engineering. Women can even become aviators, such as Major General Margaret Woodward. This exhibit is for Dr. Mary Cleve, one of the first astronauts in Maryland.
I'm Dr. Mary Cleve, and I'd like to say hello. We have a lot of interesting things going on when it comes to careers in science, technology, engineering, and math, and it's really exciting to be able to share some of them with you. This is a very exciting career for kids, any kid, but in particular we'd like to encourage girls to think about being an engineer or a scientist, because it's really a fun career. I worked for over 30 years as an engineer, and I can't think of anything I could do that would have been more fun than what I did, and what I'm still doing, in fact. So it's really a great thing to consider. So I'm going to show you some clips. Come on with me on the trip.
That was one of the crew pictures we took that kind of said what everybody was going to do on the mission.
being led out really by mission specialist Norm Thagard, Mark Lee, Mary Cleve, and the commander and pilot, Commander Dave Walker waving, and pilot Ron Graby waving. T-minus 15, 14, 13, and liftoff.
1,000 feet per second. Atlantic 2 miles downrange.
Brewster and Brian and Murray in the flight deck. They're preparing for the first of the 2 spacewalks. Three of us, Murray, Woody and myself, dubbed ourselves the Ace Construction Company with the supporting crew of the rest of the crew, and we put up our advertisement after we'd completed the construction of the first access truss.
The arm flies wonderfully. It's just such a great tool. Real smooth and no surprises. Being able to interact with them, and they gave me some real good directions while we were up there.
Mary took most of these motion picture earth views that we've got, and this is one way she did it.
We had a mid-deck experiment called a fluid experiment apparatus, which you can see here. My hands are inside of this. It's a little furnace. We were growing indium crystals. It was really an excellent mid-deck for us. We controlled it with our little experiment computer, which worked great, different floppy disks for each experimental run.
Here's Mary at the overhead windows. This is our primary vantage point for Earth observation photography.
Yeah, I sort of shared doing the food cooking duties. Whoever got hungry first seemed to be the person that would end up cooking. But it's actually a lot easier in 0G going up the stairs. In 1G, you have to be careful and take the trays one at a time, these bags, before we unpack them. You can see it took up a lot of space down here. A lot of times at work, I feel like I'm running around in circles, and so I tried actually running around in circles, and it worked up there, and it was a lot of fun.
Walker?
It's been fun working with you here and showing you a little bit about what NASA does, and I hope that we have a great time. Hope that you have a good time too. It's been great talking to you.
Again, such as Dr. Mary Cleve, women can become space explorers. This piece was created by Zakiya Tomlinson, an aerospace engineer.
Well, I've always been really interested by the space shuttle. It's an amazing vehicle. I mean, it can fly in space and land like an airplane, which is an amazing engineering design, really. There's nothing else at the time that's anything like it. So I've really been interested in the shuttle program, the missions that it's been able to do, and it was fun to have kind of your own little shuttle that you can build.
Can you explain like some of the parts on there?
Sure. It more or less looks like an airplane, so I mean it has wings, which it doesn't need when it's in space, but when it comes back down to the ground and lands, then it has to be able to fly, which it doesn't do the greatest job at, but it still is able to fly, and they can land it on a runway just like any airplane that you'd take a trip on. It also has kind of an area where they can store payloads that they would take up into space. They can take satellites, like the Hubble Space Telescope, and it can carry along components for building the space station, and it's really amazing as far as what it can carry. There's nothing else that has kind of that big of an area that you can take things into space.
That's cool.
What if we wanted to check it out? Where would we go?
You can learn a lot about the space program and accomplishments that NASA's done here by going to the visitor center that's at Goddard. They have a lot of great exhibits. You can learn about what they've done for the space program.
How did you
Women can even become mathematics and computer pioneers, such as Leela Todd Butler, a pioneer in computer programming and mathematician. Here are some of the costumes the first female astronauts wore. And the center also has exhibits of costumes of women suffragettes. And here's an exhibit of the equipment from the U.S. military field used by a Maryland female doctor in the 1980s.
And who could not be impressed with Senator Barbara Mikulski?
Good evening, everybody. first of all, I want to thank the Women's Hall of Fame for hosting this wonderful event to commemorate Title IX and also to honor those who were the prime movers of Title IX. It's a great event, and hopefully it raises money for the Women's Hall of Fame. I encourage every single one of you, if you haven't been up to Seneca Falls, to see where it all happened, where it all got started, where that first group of women squared their shoulders, put their lipsticks on, and gave them hell and started a new American Revolution. You want to go up to Seneca Falls, and you're glad that you're here supporting this event tonight. It's just wonderful to share the stage and the podium with Michelle Kwan, who thrilled and excited so many of us as she took to the ice, particularly for the Olympics. You know, Michelle, I don't think you realize, first of all, I'm not a skater. That's been a good part of my life, being on thin ice, but I'm not a skater. Bryce got her skates just about the time I won my first election. But Michelle, when you went out on that ice and you took the hopes and dreams of yourself and all the work that you had put in to being a champion skater, you knew you were taking the hopes and dreams of your country, representing us there. But also what you were doing was taking the hearts of little girls all over America who wanted to get out there, to give it their personal best, to give it a try, to give it a go. And we want to thank you for the inspirational leadership that you have provided so many. Rice's considerable achievements, her compelling personal narrative, and the fact that as she represented the United States of America, she really, too, took the hopes and dreams of the United States of America as she traveled and was the United States of America in so many places. And as you hear tonight, as she speaks, she spoke not only for herself, and she also spoke not only for the United States of America, but she spoke for women who have no voice, who have no chance of speaking up, who, if they did speak up, would land in jail, land in prison, land behind a despicable situation. And Dr. Rice, we want to thank you for not only representing America, which you've done so ably and so well, but really being a voice for those who have none, and continue to remind us we are our brothers and we are our sisters' keeper. Thank you. Terrific that we have this event tonight. We are days and weeks away from the London Olympics. We're going to see a lot of big splash. We're going to be cheering the teams on. And all of this, particularly as our Americans are at the opening ceremony, we're going to say, wasn't it always like this? Well, not quite. I remember 1972. 1972, we had no woman on the Supreme Court. We also had very few women on basketball courts. Many women still played, as women of my generation, half-court basketball. We were considered too dainty. Too dainty to play full-court, full-time basketball. Also in 1972, women were not included in the National Institute of Health protocols or trials. And we're sure many of us were not included in the Olympic trials. We also thought that the battles had been won. It was 1972. Get a life, girlfriends. I mean, didn't we solve all of those civil rights issues in 1968? Didn't the Congress in 1968 pass the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act? Wow, we all know how that's worked out. Of Lyndon Johnson, we passed the great Civil Rights Act to open up doors. And then, of course, the profound and significant Voting Rights Act of 1968. Those were the three most significant civil rights acts. So people felt that the battle had been won. But we all know that first laws passed doesn't mean guaranteed opportunity. And then what we now know was that when a young woman named Bernie Sandler from my own home state of Maryland, then a doctoral student at the University of Maryland, was denied a faculty position at the school, they said, hey, you come on too strong for a woman. We don't know if you're going to quite fit in. Gee, we don't know about you. She was heartbroken. She saw her dreams shattered. All of that hard work. You know what it's like to go get a PhD. And it was that denial that sent her on the way. And in 1970, Dr. Sandler sat in a congressional hearing about women's rights being held on the subcommittee on higher education. She was mesmerized. This led her to go to work with the charismatic and talented Congresswoman Patsy Mink. Patsy Mink took hold of these issues and began an early draft of Title IX, having Dr. Sandler at her side. And then over in the Senate, a man by the name of Senator Birch Bayh introduced also legislation that would add yet another new title called Title IX. Well, like they say, the rest is history. Those people put their lives on the line, listened to the stories of people in their day-to-day lives, and they changed the law books, they changed history, and they changed the personal history of so many women. And we want to give them a tribute. Talked about the legislation, and as she indicated, it was about sports, but it was also one of the most important legislations advancing opportunities for women and girls in the world of education. At first in sports alone, where some were able to play varsity, few were able to go on to college. There were very few varsity sports for girls. We were cheerleaders. We were meant to carry the buckets and the batons and go hoorah, hoorah for the guys. But there was no bench, and in fact, we were expected to stay on the back bench. But after Title IX, we now know that the numbers and statistics have grown not only on the playing fields, but everywhere. Women who play sports get better grades. They graduate at higher rates. They often have less likely to have unwanted pregnancies. And they carry what they learn on those playing fields and are more confident and more self-esteem. Title IX has opened doors in all of these aspects. We now have a whole generation of women who not only have benefited from this law, but have broken through ceilings we never before imagined. So much has changed since 1972, when many of those girls walked on those playing fields, as those of us who worked in and walked on other fields, we are no longer seen as novelties. Often for those of us who were the first, we were viewed as the novelties. But now, what are we viewed as? We're viewed as scholars. We're viewed as physicians. We're viewed as scientists. We're viewed as champions in every field of endeavor. There are many here tonight, like Catherine Switzer, who ran the first marathon, and we were inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame. Our beloved Sandra Day O'Connor, the first woman on the Supreme Court. For me, I was the first Democratic woman ever elected in her own right. Months ago, when I took my oath for my 5th term, I became the longest serving woman in the history of the United States Senate, joining Margaret Chase Smith in the history books. And tonight I bring you the greetings of the women of the Senate. I told them I was coming over here, and all 17 of them wanted to say hello and bring their personal greetings, and also say every day they're trying to do their personal best to lead the country. One of the things when we were inducted into the Hall of Fame, Catherine and I talked to many other inductees, and there were 3 things that we had in common. And let me conclude by sharing these three things. One of the first things was, though we were in many instances the first, we all wanted to be the first of many. And we saw it as our obligation, as our responsibility, as that a door opened up for us. We wanted to make sure that a door opened for others and to encourage and mentor other people to come into our fields of endeavor. The other thing was that often our greatest no that we heard became our greatest yes. No, you can't do that. Well, who ever heard of a girl doing that? No woman could ever run for Baltimore City Council, did she? But why are we even thinking that? With that word no in our ears, but we turned it to yes in our hearts. Our biggest no became our greatest yes. And that's one of the other things that we need to continually tell those who hear no too often, that yes, you can. And then last but not at all least, that behind every me, there's a whole lot of we. You never get to be a me without the we. First of all, the public institutions, public schools, public libraries, public recreation centers, public playing fields that enable you to come no matter what's your background, what's your zip code, or the size of your family wallet. And then also, all of those young girls out there, it was the parents who drove them to practice, it was the teachers, it was the coaches. Behind every one of those champions, there's a whole lot of we. And we have to remember that in this country, even when you succeed with your own grit, determination, and talent, behind you is a whole lot of we. And we got to keep the we happening and growing. So we salute Title IX, and we salute the people who made it happen. And you, Senator Bayh, if I might say, you've been a great inspiration to many in the Senate. When your own beloved wife died of breast cancer, you took that cause up as well. And you were one of the first to speak about that dreaded disease and how we needed to increase research. You really began the race for the cure in the Senate. For all of those everywhere, too, who took that personal tragedy, we want to salute you. And to show that men of quality never fear we women who seek equality.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the show. This is Ariel Brown signing off, and we'll see you next time.